I'm offering this to the community, but I feel that I am receiving far more than I'm giving. So when I'm facilitating Date with Death Club, I usually just say that I'm a global hospice and palliative care volunteer, but also I am a founder of a not yet incorporated, I think it will be a nonprofit called A Storied Life. It's just bringing people together in small groups of 6 to 8 people to share stories about birth and death. And it's sort of using the Center for Courage and Renewal approach to create a safe space, and people share the time, and we meet once a month for 6 months.
I think the stories that we tell is part of how we make meaning. And I think humans are meaning makers, right?
Mm.
And when the world is chaotic, which it certainly seems to be, no matter where you are on the political spectrum, uh, the meaning making becomes the thread that helps pull us through the chaos and the confusion and the upset. So that sounds like a really powerful thing that you're creating. So, how did you find out about where did you hear about Date with Death Club?
I have been listening to End of Life University podcast, Dr. Karen Wyatt, for a long time, and I heard your interview there and checked it out immediately. I mean, this idea, like I think you said in the podcast, it sort of almost came to you whole from the universe, and you just put it out there and you wanted it to be available as an important thing. I want to bring together diverse members of the community, and I loved that Date with Death Club was something that is for everyone. It welcomes everyone, and it's accessible to anyone, and no one has to pay to come, and all of these things which I really appreciated about what you put out there, and it's been wonderful. The response has been amazing. So far I've offered it in a senior center, um, in our community, and also at a public library. It's open to anyone, so you don't have to be a member of the senior center to register. But I'll tell you, we've had a waiting list because the room can only hold so many people. So it's been phenomenal. A few people, even the librarian, made an announcement. There's a program, Date with Death Club starting in 5 minutes or something, and people came in and they've been regulars. So, it's been really phenomenal.
Yay,
And
librarians, they are the
exactly,
best.
they are. The one session though that we did most recently, it was Dying, Death, and Poetry. We had a smaller group for that one for whatever reason. Maybe people thought, man, I'm not into poetry. I'm not so some of the regulars skipped that one. We had a smaller group and it was beautiful. We had a group of 8 people, which was tiny compared to the other groups, which have been over 20. 3 people were brought to tears, just sharing, like in a beautiful way, sharing things, and they really appreciated the opportunity to explore these topics through poetry, through a third thing, the slant. And
Just for folks who are considering facilitating or bringing Date with Death Club to their community, but they don't kind of know how to go about it, did you already have a contact either at the library or the senior center, or did you cold call? Oh, you cold called.
I did. I
Whoa.
did. It was actually a long process. It was relationship building, and I reached out to her and I explained what it was, and she just it struck her. She said, "We need something like this. People want to talk about this. We need to do something." When I'll have on there's like a whiteboard arrow whiteboard, to say, oh, come to this classroom, and I'll write Date with Death Club, exploring mortality and community. And some people will peek their head in and think like, what are you people doing? There are going to be people for whom this is exactly what they're looking for. I think both libraries and senior centers are really open to this. And in fact, I've had 2 more senior centers in our area reach out to me. And that's what's beautiful about it too, is that it's sort of as the full spectrum, which you've provided, the philosophical and spiritual. side of things, as well as the informational and logistical side of things. And I think it's just that wholeness and that balance. And it's not like anything else that's out there.
I have made it a free will offering and just trusting that it will find its way into communities and grow, hopefully, with each passing year. I don't charge for the curriculum. I ask that if you use the curriculum, right, that you don't charge, but it's okay to accept donations because there's
It is the curriculum is so well thought out. It is so well prepared. It is so well laid out that it makes it possible for me to feel confident that I can get up there and say, I am bringing this to you as a member of the community who wants to open up uh, the conversation about dying and death. And then the slides, I knew that they were $40 a session, and I thought, well, I'm not gonna be able to spend that. So I created the slides for every session myself, and I would say that in the end, I think that that made me feel even more prepared.
That makes so much sense. And I'm so glad, right? Because the curriculum's free. I do charge for slides, but I don't require that you use my slides. So I'm so glad that there was space for that. And then without, sharing identities, I don't know if there's a story that kind of sits with your heart.
I think this was after the first session. There was a woman who came up to me afterwards and said, "When I walked into this room, I wanted to be here because I wanted to talk about this. But I was so afraid that being here was going to make me feel terrible. I was so afraid by what I would have to work through." And she said, "But it was such a welcoming space, and it was quite the opposite." She said, "I had a really wonderful time, and I'm so glad I came, and I'll be coming again." I think I mentioned to you that aging better than the alternative was actually someone came up to me after that one and said, "You knocked it out of the park." I was like, I mean, okay, that wasn't me. That was the curriculum. That was you, or that was the universe. So I mean, they loved the both sides now, and they loved, the story of Buddha and all the conversations. But I wanted to tell you, there was the one where the imagining loss activity. I think that one was really difficult for people, where you have five things that you've written on a piece of paper, and then you have to get rid of two of them, and someone else is gonna get rid of the other, and then with a big breath you bring each one back. But I think it was so hard to go through that. um that one was really heavy. So sometimes we are doing hard stuff.
I think you are right. That is one of the pieces that really asks a lot of people who stay present. I remember when I did it, I've actually only done it once myself, is that it felt so important, this container that is recreated in each session that allows people to trust that they're being held in a safe and brave space that they
A really important thing is our group agreement. That's very important. And I always spend a decent amount of time going over that to make sure that we are all understanding what this space is like for everyone here. It's about the facilitation, right? Like you said, the container, the holding the space, the group agreement. And, I've joked around with people about, for example, the no advising or correcting, no saving, fixing, advising, or correcting. I go all through it and say, this is the hardest one for those of us who like to help. And some people will just and I can use that advice myself, but
I I love the story that you just told about that person who was like, "I need to be here, but I'm not sure about being here. I'm afraid of what it will be." And I think the intentionality around that first session, which is the only session that I say really start with getting comfortable with death talk, and the beginning with the video from the Coffin Club that says, "This is not going to just be somber. You aren't going to have to be a puddle that leaves the room every time you come," is so, so important. And, and then on the other end, right? Ending with a joke is, I think, also really important so that we understand this is a serious thing, but humor belongs to help us find some balance.
I think that the way that you have put things together, I mean, it's working. That's what's happening. It's and with the group agreement and then with the content and with this opportunity to, present things to the group, but then let them share from their I'm the youngest person in the room, and I'm the one learning the most. I did feel a little bit out on my own, right? Right from the start, which is that's how it's supposed to be, But if moving forward, there are models or there are people, or maybe a network of the Date with Death Club facilitators, maybe we could share ideas, right? Because something like that maybe would help. Because for example, I would tell you if there's someone who wants to start, but they're feeling really nervous or they don't know how to go about it, and you're very busy, you have a congregation, if they want to, if they're like, is there anyone I could talk to, maybe just to pick their brain about how they went about it, I would be willing to do that. If there was something like that, that would be helpful to see how people have incorporated it into their other work or made it sustainable. For
Um,
me,
I am so thankful that you are out there and that you're bringing your enthusiasm and that it's feeding you. That it makes me really happy, and it makes me really happy to think about people in the Buffalo area who are getting some of this good medicine, mortality medicine. That's awesome. Thank you, Amber.
thanks for putting it out there. It's a beautiful gift to the world, and I'm just so glad to be able to be some small part of bringing it to people. Because I should tell you, I'm on a journey and I don't know exactly where I'm going, and I've just been feeling things. I've just been looking at I'm like on the labyrinth, just looking right in front of my feet. I don't know where I'm headed, and I'm called to do. I am being called to this space, but I don't know what I'm being called to do. So I'm
Mhm.
figuring out the what I'm doing, the how I'm going to do it. So it's been for me a really wonderful experience to be with those people in that space.